Okay, welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this finally, in the end of August, a pleasant summer day. You can open the windows and let the breeze blow in last night and sleep with at least one blanket on you so it didn't feel so bad. Hopefully we'll get a few more of these before the summer's over. Do we have any announcements?
None.
Derek did contact me, and we have the dates, which I don't remember, but I'll come up. September, October, November. Our guest speaker will be the girl from, that'll be the Earlham trainee, will be our speaker. She'll be basically with Derek at El Dorado, and then come over here one Sunday a month. I don't know whether she's going to just do the sermon or whether she's going to pick the music. I told Derek maybe we need to get together ahead of time and have her, at least give her the outline of what's going on and ask her, what's with this fly? I don't think I fell in the horse manure this morning, so I don't think the fly should be attracted to me that much. So, just, there it is. All right, I'll keep trying. Not as quick as I used to be. Let's see, anything else? Always as a greeting to our absent friends. Kenny's not here. He's at I am assuming, at the sausage trailer at the fair. I will be at the Democratic tent, which is right in front of the Coliseum from 12 to noon, so we'll have to leave here. I'll have to leave here early enough to get to the fair. We have homemade rolls. Tara always makes cinnamon rolls with pecans in them for Christmas, and she makes like 3 or 4 because she always makes more than, there's only 4 of us, and she always makes more than any of us can eat. So I was going through the freezer and run across one of them, so I brought them in for us today. If we don't finish them, they'll go back in the freezer till next week. But homemade cinnamon rolls with pecans, so hopefully they're pretty decent. I think that's all. Today, I don't know how I got it. I think because of the things that are going on, I started to wonder why we are doing well, I always wonder why we do the things we do. So anyway, if you don't recognize, this is a classic picture you will see in your high school textbook or definitely your college textbook. This is Socrates, and it is kind of amazing to me. Socrates is more than 2,000 years old. He was famous for asking questions, and hey, nice to have you here. Was famous for asking questions, and there was another person from 2,000 years ago who was also famous for asking questions. We have a volunteer, Jesus Christ. Was kind of the same pivotal person, someone who is 2,000 years old, and we still remember that person for the actions and the life that they led. And we're going to talk a little bit about Socrates and the life that he led and why we still remember him and whether we're remembering him for the right reason. So anyway, let's go with our prelude. If ever I would leave you. that he's here. We found out when Lloyd wasn't here how important Lloyd is. Music is an integral part of church. I'm not exactly sure why, and it's not just the Christian hymns or the regular hymns. It's just the fact of somebody applying their talent and providing live music for our enjoyment and our edification that is very rewarding. All right, our scripture, Old Testament this time, Proverbs, first chapter, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. That would be this picture. This is a reference that I'm going to be working with pretty much every week. I brought up or suggested this metaphor a couple of weeks ago. I feel like we are in the back of the bus being driven by a crazy person down the street, going in directions that we had never anticipated and can't even keep up. By the time we hit one fire hydrant, we're already careening down into the next bus standard, and then we're knocking over the bench on the other side of the road before we can even realize what we've looked back and seen that has happened. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Let's see. Chalice lighting. As we light this chalice, beacon of our people, we remember the guiding light of love. We welcome the shining light of truth, and we orient ourselves toward constructive action. The flame we gaze upon is held aloft in a cup of communal covenant. It calls us all to a rational, relational way of being, in which issues are communicated with care and are received with grace and are resolved in keeping with our values of mutual respect and accountability. In this spirit, we meet one another and begin. Those are words by Sherry Woodruff. Opening hymn in the blue hymnal is number 11, O God of Stars and Sunlight. A voice within you. There is a voice within you, much older than language itself and deeper than thought. A voice shaped by memory, by lineage, by lived experience. A voice that knows what it feels like to be honored, what it feels like to be dismissed. A voice that lives not only in your words, but within your body. As you move through this season, as the world shifts, blooms, and begins again, notice where you feel that voice. Notice what calls your attention forth. And ask yourself, where is my presence needed for me? Where is my care required? Where is my truth asking to be lived? Because life is not waiting somewhere else. It is here. In this breath, it is now. In this extraordinary, sacred act of being, listen with your heart and tend gently to what is in front of you. Words by Janae Johnson. Joys and concerns. We'll start with a candle for all of our absent friends. Haven't heard anything from Jazz and Paula. We keep talking about going to see them, and it never happens, so I'm going to have to get on that. My life is a little busy now, so that it may be a little bit of time before we can do that. I hope they're doing.
There's a lot of updated photos on Facebook of Paula and
there are on their page. All right, good. And I have not even paid any attention to their page. I'll have to go look. And actually, I'll pull some of those. Maybe if I'll ask them if they don't mind, I'll put them on our Facebook page. That's a good idea to connect us. That's what social media is actually for, is to keep us in connection when we can't actually sit and talk to each other. So hopefully people are taking advantage of that. I haven't heard from anybody else. I didn't mention that we are getting our substitute pastor, our trainee pastor, through Derek from Berlin School of Religion, which I don't remember her name now. I should have written all this down.
Her first name is Michaela.
Michaela. She will be here in September, one Sunday in September, one Sunday in October, and then one Sunday in November. And Derek also asked if we want to continue the joint sessions. November, we will be back if we want to, which I'm assuming we do. We'll be back at El Dorado. I don't have the exact date for that either, but we'll put that in plenty of time for that to happen. Actually, after November 3rd, I'll have more time to pay attention to this stuff.
Or not.
Yeah, the lightning would have to strike, but I can't, there's nothing to say it wouldn't happen, but the odds are against it. So, and I'm planning on a life of calm and quiet. So. All right. Let's see.
I think it's noteworthy in terms of choice and concerns that we might have a concern that there is now a $40 trillion deficit. That's 4 followed by 13 zeros. And that's just been announced, a $40 trillion deficit with the United States of America. Back in 2018, I was watching a TV show and it was quoting the current president actually talking about the need to address the deficit. And more importantly, at that time, I want to say it was about 19 or 20 trillion dollars. And now, just 6 to 7 years later, it's $40 trillion. So I just think that we all need to be aware of that and not to promote bad news, but more importantly, how can everyone in this country, particularly our government, contribute to reducing that ever so slightly rather than digging deeper and deeper into debt.
And this is election season where you get to make your choice of which way the country proceeds, from your local city council to your county government, to your state government, to your federal government. All these choices will be coming up. The deficit didn't just happen. I have it on good authority. It's all Joe Biden's fault. No. We were told that every day, and we'll be told that again, I'm sure. and the tax cuts have nothing to do with it. So that's
More to billions of dollars in legacy improvements to our parks and buildings and other historical sites.
yes,
Including 14-karat building.
of statues in Washington, which is pretty.
And the
We'll go
lawsuits, and the lawsuits when those get denied by the courts.
Yes. We're going to go through, that's part of what we're going to do. We're going to talk about Socrates and what his theory was of government and what his theory was to teach people. And I think that has something to do with what's going on. But first, we need to remember the Ukraine. They are being pummeled every night, and it's a war crime. It's tragic. The last one this last weekend, the Russians sent a ballistic missile to a shopping mall, which has no value whatsoever, no military value whatsoever, and not even any electric generation or utility. It's not even causing trouble for the survival of the population with heat, light, and water. It's purely to cause personal destruction. And then they did what is called a double tap, which the Israelis are famous for. Once they waited 20 minutes until all the first responders, the aid workers showed up, and then they dropped another missile on it to kill the first responders. That is a criminal act by anybody's understanding, and it goes on and on with no criticism from our government, criticism from the European Union, but no criticism from our government. It is a travesty. And the same thing, wildness or illegality or inhumaneness is spreading. The same thing is happening, and we'll probably do a Sunday on that sometime. If you watch the news, you will see Israeli government ministers. They are erecting gallows so they can start hanging Palestinian prisoners, and they have set up a visitors gallery so people can come and watch. If you remember the history in your history books, if you can find them before they're expunged, there were pictures of lynchings in the South where innocent or blacks who'd been accused of things were lynched in the public square. Hundreds of people would bring their kids to watch a lynching. That is how depraved and how sick humanity can be. And we are seeing a reproduction and a flowering of that again in Israel. Not all Jews, not all Israelis, but the ones who are in the government. And you have to ask, how did the government become in power? And then you have to look in the mirror and say, how is our government in power with the things our government is doing to us? Natural disasters, floods still going on, and the generosity of people is pretty amazing. I was in Camden and a couple other towns in Preble County, and they loaded a semi truck, not just Camden, but Preble County had an actual semi trailer full of food supplies, paper towels, cleaning supplies, everything they needed, sent to Connersville. The Red Cross turned them away. They already had more materials than they couldn't even store them anymore. They had so many. So that semi-trailer was returned and stored until such time as they need it, and that'll be taken back. The thing that they say that they want is money and gift cards. They have plenty of paper towels and buckets and mops. What they need is money to help people return to some set of normalcy. Normalcy is beyond the pale. If you remember, if you've heard the news, Gary, Indiana was struck by a high straight wind and they lost electricity. It is now like 10 or 12 days, and they're not predicting the electricity will be returned until Tuesday, which would make can you imagine going a full 2 weeks without electricity? They have generators set up for cooling stations and places for people to charge their phones. All the food in your refrigerator and freezers all through Gary is all ruined and thrown out. People are living day by day with no electricity like back in the dark ages. And have you seen any pictures of FEMA in Gary? FEMA is non-existent. There is no FEMA relief. Once again, the pettiness where federal relief goes to states that vote for conservatives, and any state that votes against conservatives, any state that votes blue is deprived. California was deprived of FEMA help after the fires, the tragic fires in California. This is totally un-American. This is unbelievable behavior, and unbelievable that it is still accepted. So our thoughts and prayers go with Gary and all the other areas that have lost FEMA. Interestingly enough, I heard on the news just on the way in this morning, the FEMA director that was appointed for the first 6 months of this administration was fired after 6 months because he was too eager to make FEMA work. He has been rehired. So we will see if there is a change coming. It's possible that reality does have some effect on these people, but so far I have not seen any proof of it yet. So. One last candle for those thoughts and prayers and those desires that we are unable to voice. Anybody who needs anything, please let us know. We will help in whatever way we can. Socrates, I don't know if this will play, we'll find out. I've not had real good luck with it. This is, how many of you are aware of Bill and Ted's Adventure? Bill and Ted was a movie from 30 years ago, 20 years ago, a long time ago. And it was a fun parody movie that made fun of things, but it actually covered history as it went. And we may not be able to see it. They basically were able to time travel, and they went back in history and went through and visited momentous eras in the history of the world, from the basic situation of two California teenagers who were pretty spaced out, and the simple view of what that would bring to their country. Let's go back and try again. Usually I try to film these and put them on, and I didn't have time to do that this time. So there's nothing really educational about this. It was just fun. Okay. So let's go straight to our presentation. Oh, I'm missing a page. That's it. Yep. All right, our second scripture is John 8, verse 32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. When the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. That is a quote from Socrates from 2,000 years ago. When the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. If you've seen any of the ads that are being published on TV, that are prominent on TV now, you will know the definition of slander. The things that are being said about the Democratic candidates are basically untrue from beginning to end. Almost every single statement about Amy Acton not being a qualified doctor, being in charge of closing nursing homes, being in charge of telling people they had to wear masks, none of that is true, and none of it seems to affect, the truth does not seem to affect anybody's approach on how to handle public affairs. If you want to be wrong, then follow the masses. Another quote from Socrates, if you want to be wrong, then follow the masses. Pretty amazing for someone who lived thousands of years ago and still has such influence today, just like Jesus Christ, and we're going to compare some of the reasons why. Socrates didn't write or pontificate, he simply asked questions. Everything we know about him was written by his pupils. Like Plato, you may have heard of Plato as another Greek philosopher. He just asked questions, basically just like Christ asked questions, asked people what was the right thing to do. Christ would tell people sometimes what the right thing to do, but Socrates never told you outright. He just asked you questions and led you to that direction. He pointed out the problems in everyday common thought and behavior. It also might remind you a little bit of kids. This is kind of a carryover from last week. Why? You heard that before if you have kids, little kids, 2 years old, 3 years old, 7 years old. Are they little philosophers, or are they just excited and curious? Whatever, they are on to something. Asking why is the quickest way to the heart of a misunderstanding. Instead of arguing and finding more reasons why you are right and the other person is wrong, try asking questions. Try to understand why they think the way they do, and try to help them understand the reason they think what they do. That is the hardest part, is reaching someone who is locked into a behavior pattern. And telling them that they're wrong does absolutely no good. Telling them what the right answer is does absolutely no good. I'm beginning to understand Socrates' plan. Asking them a question: why do they believe what they believe? Why do they think what they think is right is correct? Why? You know that Socrates drank hemlock and died in ancient Athens because he ran afoul of the political rulers and the people of Athens. Because Athens at that time was an actual infant democracy. It changed back and forth between a dictatorship and a democracy, but at this time it was a democracy, and he was condemned for alienating the youth by asking questions, condemned by a democratic vote and his own decision. He could have prescribed his own punishment for his offense. He could have left Athens for another Greek town, but he chose to drink the poison. That is another question. Why did Socrates basically commit suicide? The Greek democracy, which was basically all of the voting age men or the adult men in the town of Athens, considered were that democracy. It was a true, literal democracy. Everybody cast a vote. They got together, they had a trial, they listened to Socrates make his presentation, and they said, no, he still offended the city of Athens, and he had to choose his own punishment. When he refused to leave town, when he refused to be exiled, when he refused to apologize, what he asked them to do for his punishment was provide him food and drink for the rest of his life because he was such a great teacher. When you do that to a judge or a person holding your life in their hands, you've kind of insulted them, and so they responded by saying, we levy on you the death penalty. They assumed that meant he would choose to leave town and they would be rid of Socrates. He surprised them by saying, I'll take the death penalty. And he did. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And he asked questions. He continued to ask questions as he slowly died. Hemlock is a very slow-acting poison. It starts at your extremities, your feet and your toes, and your fingers go numb. And as the numbness goes up your body, when it reaches your heart stops and you die. Until that time, even while he was drinking the hemlock and dying, he continued to ask questions. This is what Plato says, who was there. His students were there with him, and that's how we know anything about Socrates, is because his students wrote the books. So we don't know if this is exactly correct, because every student or every observer, their attitude is flavored and colored by their own beliefs and their own ideas they want to get across, so there's always a little bit of wiggle room there. But Athens was a true democracy. Everything was voted on by the adult male population. No representation, only a yes or no on each proposition. So what is the Socratic method, which is still taught today? First, let's look at a item called Dunning-Kruger, or as Socrates would say, knowing what you don't know. That was Socrates' primary teaching, knowing what you don't know. Dunning-Kruger were two scientists in the early 20s and 30s who figured this out. These ideas were expressed by people before this time. Charles Darwin said, ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. And I'll show you the Dunning-Kruger thing here, but let me go back to ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. That's why we're talking about that today. Bertrand Russell said, in the modern world, the stupid are cocksure while the intelligent are full of doubt. The stupid are cocksure while the intelligent are full of doubt. Dunning and Kruger were awarded a satirical Nobel Prize in recognition of the scientific work in their modest report. The tendency for people who have little ability or knowledge of a particular task or subject to overestimate their knowledge or ability in this area, while those who are highly skilled or knowledgeable may tend to underestimate theirs. It is a double curse. Not only do they perform poorly with huge errors, but they simultaneously think and brag about how well they are doing. Not only do they perform poorly with huge errors, but they simultaneously think and brag how well they are doing. Ring any bells? Someone who brags about how smart they are, how great things are going, when we can all see exactly the opposite is true. Dunning and Kruger. The classic foundational example of the Dunning-Kruger effect is the 1995 bank robbery case of MacArthur Wheeler. He robbed two banks with lemon juice smeared on his face. Anybody know why? When you were in grade school, did they teach you about secret writing? If you write with lemon juice on a piece of paper, it's invisible. If you put heat to it, the writing becomes visible. Every fifth grade kid, most of them, I did it, tried it, and it actually works. If you write letters in lemon juice, you cannot see it when it dries. But when you heat it with a match or a pen, all of a sudden the writing appears. Mr. Wheeler smeared lemon juice all over his face and then was totally surprised when the police came and arrested him because the security cameras had his picture. He even was a scientific method tester. He smeared lemon juice on his face and then took a selfie with, this is in the 90s, with a Polaroid camera. I don't know how many of you have ever used a Polaroid camera. They are not the most photogenic or the most effective camera. And if you're holding it and the light is shining on your face in a certain way, you're going to get a blur on your picture. So he said, perfect, the lemon juice made me invisible, and he went and robbed two banks and was dumbfounded when he was arrested and they showed him pictures of the security camera. That is the Dunning-Kruger example. That's what these two scientists said. How could this guy be this stupid? Pretty much the same thing we are hearing echoed across the United States today. How could this guy be this stupid to smear this much lemon juice on his face and think that we can't see him? All right, the reason we started on this Dunning-Kruger search, the epitome of this malady, let's go through some of the reasons. We are starting an economic attack on Iran. We are bombing a primitive society back into a primitive society they never left. That doesn't work. Bombing Iran has proved to be basically a failure as a progress. So what is the next? They pivot to the next thing, which is an economic attack on a country that has been economically attacked for the last 40 years or 30 years. Is that going to have any effect either? If a country in the Middle East goes against our wishes, for instance, Oman said they are going to work with Iran to work and open the Straits of Hormuz. What is our threat? We are going to bomb the blank out of Oman. Our ally in the Middle East, if they don't do what we want, we're going to bomb the blank out of them. What the? Dunning-Kruger. Vaccines. How many of you have heard the new vaccine regimen for measles, mumps, rubella, MMR? It comes now in one shot. They are saying, and our Dunning-Kruger president said they are getting gallons of vaccines injected into them, so we're going to separate those shots into 3 shots. So the measles, mumps, and rubella, instead of going to the doctor at age 5 months or 6 months, whatever it is, and getting 1 shot, you're going to have to go and get 1 shot, and then a month later get another shot, and a month later get another shot, for no reason whatsoever than Dunning-Kruger. That's going to, people are going to miss shots. It's increasing the pain on the kids, and it's going to increase the questioning of the validity of what the government is telling us, which you should question that validity. There is now a $5 billion lawsuit because a national investigative group, independent group, said that crime was going down in all the major cities, and sending the National Guard to Washington, D.C. and Memphis, Tennessee had no real effect on the crime rates. Crime was already going down. Now Dunning-Kruger is going to sue this group for $5 billion for lying about the efficacy of his National Guard out. The facts are there. They are obvious. Any court, unless the court is stacked, is going to see that. Dunning-Kruger. We are now going to import some million pounds or million bunches of metric tons of ground beef from foreign countries, because with an election coming up in 2 months and the price of ground beef being high, there's going to be a problem with dissatisfied voters. How do you buy off the voters? You give them cheap hamburger. You can't get cheap hamburger here because with the drought and the government conditions, the cattle herds are shrinking. Just as a sidelight, what else has happened? They've closed 2 packing plants. They closed a packing plant in Illinois, so all the farmers in Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, who send their fat steers to that packing plant in Illinois, now have to send their steers to Utah. When you send your steer, there is a shipping cost per mile for every mile they truck those steers. That comes off whatever amount of money you're getting for your steers. So cattle farmers are losing their shirt on this, cattle raisers. And who endorsed Dunning-Kruger for government? The National Cattlemen's Association. A question that I have right there, and even they are beginning to say, wait a minute, you are giving Argentina $5 billion in aid so you can produce more beef, so you can send more beef to China, so you can send more beef to the United States. Why are you subsidizing our competition? Even the National Cattlemen's Association has said, what Dunning-Kruger thing is happening now? That is another Dunning-Kruger example. Farmers still are in the conservative bloc. They still support a president who has put in tariffs that has raised the price of fertilizer × 2, raised the price of diesel fuel × 3, raised the price of machinery parts, replacement parts for their equipment. Every switch you look at, every item you look at, farmers are taking it in the ear, basically. And they still are not rising up and saying, we need a change. Amazing to me, as I talk to union groups. If you remember the policemen's union, the firemen's union, the Teamsters are either neutral or support Republicans. Republicans are the people who say they do not want unions in existence. They want to have the freedom of choice, so you can get the benefits of a union. Workers can get the benefits of a union without having to pay union dues. That is the death knell for unions. Why would anybody pay union dues when they're going to get union wages without paying? This is a dagger in the heart of unions, and it is supported by conservatives all over the line from top to bottom. All right, South Korea, he has stopped or reduced our exercises with South Korea with the military because he's mad because South Korea will not send any troops to help him in Iran. So he is punishing South Korea. He has said he is a friend of Kim Il-jong in North Korea and plans on having a meeting with him. So we have Dunning-Kruger being friends with the communist dictator from the North and withholding aid from our ally in the South. South Korea has people were sent to Afghanistan. South Korea had troops die in Afghanistan helping the United States, but because they will not help him in his pet project, they are being punished. Dunning-Kruger. He canceled. The military has an experimental drone program to learn how to fly drones, to learn how to intercept drones, to learn how to use drones. Their teachers they're learning from the Ukrainians who have mastered the art of drone fighting. The only chance the Ukrainians have for offense or defense is the drones they create. Our government has canceled that experimental program to teach our military how to use drones. Dunning-Kruger. Today, there is an Indiana race car race in Washington, D.C. An Indiana race car race. The streets were blocked off. 240 or whatever the number sewer lids, the covers to manholes had to be welded closed because when race cars go over them, they pop up and then fly into the crowd or the cars drop into the manhole. So all those had to be welded closed. The drivers said the streets of Washington, D.C., which anybody who lives there knows, they're full of potholes, they're uneven, they're bumps and streaks all through them. It is going to be terrible for an Indy cars are like 2 inches above the ground. So there's going to be problems all the way through here. What is the point of an IndyCar race? What is the point of a cage match on the White House grounds? What is the point of a 250-year celebration in the Washington Mall with no electricity and no air conditioning and consequently no crowds? Dunning-Kruger. Then we can go to the other list. Naming John F. Kennedy Center. His name was removed by the courts. So what is their response? They are putting the name underneath as renovated by Dunning-Kruger. So the name will go back onto the Kennedy Center. It won't be open for 2 years because nobody will perform there, but the name will be on it. There is a Dunning-Kruger Boulevard in Palm Beach, Florida. The name has just been changed. The Palm Beach International Airport has just been changed. The name has been changed. And now, son of a gun, the flights in and out by many passengers have dropped off by a huge percentage because people will go to the next nearest airport. They won't use that airport. The United States Institute of Peace, the name was changed. U.S. paper currency will now have a living president's signature, which has never been done before, starting with the naturally $100 bill. There is a proposed new bill, which we've never had, well, we had years and years ago. They want to now institute a $500 bill with guess whose picture on it. A commemorative gold coin. This image will be on this gold coin, a series of coins they are planning to celebrate the 250th birthday. The National Park Service, I showed you pictures of this before. The new pass for the Park Service has Dunning-Kruger's picture on the pass. And if you go to the Park Service and you put a smiley face over that picture, they will not accept your park pass. It has to be there smiling in all its glory for it to be used. There is now an account for children. You can get I think it's $2,000 from the federal government invested in your child, and that will grow interest. And when they grow to 18, you will have $2,000 plus $500 or $600, what the interest would be at the interest rates today. It is non-taxable, so people who are rich can add money to that account. And when their kids get to be 18 years old, they may have $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000, all tax-free, has grown because they have the extra money to contribute to that account. If you are a middle class or a lower class person who does not have an extra $50 a week or $20 a week or even $10 a week, when your kid gets to be 18, they will have that $2,000 plus the meager interest. Trump prescriptions. Newly offered, supposedly the prescription prices are coming down. If you looked at the history of prescription prices, under our previous president, they passed a law that Medicare can argue with the pharmacy and negotiate what the price is for prescriptions. That is what has lowered prescription prices, not importing prescriptions from other countries at a reduced price. Just as a sidelight, Dunning-Kruger made 1,000 stock trades in the month of June. 1,000 stock trades in the month of June. I don't have any idea what they were. Another new news thing, the national park is now spraying Roundup on 10,000 acres around Yosemite National Park. Roundup is the primary ingredient is glyphosate. Glyphosate was produced by Monsanto until they were bought out by a bigger company. They were sued multiple times and they lost multiple times, and they settled multiple times with millions of dollars in settlement because glyphosate, according to the Europeans and independent laboratories, causes cancer. And that is now being sprayed on 10,000 acres. And there's got to be a secret deal in the line to create this. And if you listen, they had it on PBS News, like Thursday or Friday. They interviewed the park superintendent who was in charge of it. He said that's the reason they're doing it. The reason they're doing it is to kill the brush, to prevent the fires. He said they asked him about the glyphosate, and he said, you'll have to talk to Washington about that. I know nothing about that. He knew exactly what was going on, but his job was on the line. Another sad note, wild horses are now being rounded up, and they always have been, but what's happening to the wild horses now and donkeys? They're being sold for meat. They're being shipped to Canada and Mexico to slaughterhouses. There's always been a little bit of this going on for people who buy a wild horse and say they're going to adopt it and then take it off and sell it for slaughter. But they're selling wild horses for $25 a piece, and there's not hundreds of thousands of people adopting wild horses. There are a lot, but not that many. So those wild horses, those Mustangs, are going to slaughter in Mexico, which makes me curious. These metric tons of hamburger that we're importing, just asking. Our country is being, another one, the newest thing that was noted or announced last week. Prior to this time, the Bureau of Land Management has had control of millions of acres of usually western areas that have been protected from abuse. All those rules have been dropped. Anybody can take a four-wheeler or a Jeep or a motorcycle, a cross-country motorcycle into these areas and use them for recreation. Desert areas, pristine areas for wildlife, they are all open to be desecrated by activities. It's just unbelievable. So why was Socrates so disliked? He never wrote anything down, and he seemed to look at all sides. At that time, between the Democrats in Athens and what they call the 30 Triads in Greece, both found reasons to distrust Socrates, because he always said, let me ask questions, what do you believe? He wasn't wholeheartedly for democracy, Remember, he said, if you want to go wrong, follow the populace, follow the general mass, and you'll go in the wrong direction. But he also did not like tyranny. So, if people thought that you knew the right thing, well, what he said was, if people knew the right thing, they would do the right thing. Evil actions are only because they don't know the right thing. He believed in education. He believed if people could learn what the right action was and that he could teach them that by asking questions, how to find the right answer, they would do the right answer. He truly believed, according to Plato, that the only reason people make poor choices is because they are not educated. I think in my personal estimation, he's missing the point a little bit because we have some really intelligent people in this administration who are making the wrong choices all the time. And they're doing it for personal reasons because of greed or because of hero worship. I'm not sure what the reason is, but I'm not sure Socrates was 100% right on that. All right, I'm running out of time here. I got more stuff, but we'll do that at some other time. Comments or questions?
Just real quickly, in my lots of educators that I have known in my career as an educator use Socratic dialogue.
Yes.
And it's very powerful teaching method. Unfortunately, it's not used pervasive enough, and I believe, in my opinion, in education today. You know, in our industrial model of educating children, lockstep, 9 months at a time, moving along chronologically, and yet trying to meet the needs of all children. There's some flaws in that reasoning alone. But also the reliance on the agrarian school calendar, just teach 9 months a year, because farmers need boys and girls for the other 3.
Yeah.
And then that will probably be an institution that will last long, beyond my lifetime. But Socratic dialogue, I found in my limited use, is still very useful whether you're a role in it. A Sunday school teacher, a parent, an educator, a teacher, whatever. It's very powerful. It not only allows the child to develop conceptually rather than just memorizing, but also allows the teacher to diagnose and spot and identify boys and girls' misconceptions. And if those misconceptions aren't challenged, and often they're not in teaching modes, that Socratic dialogue will do that. And that'll correct that, and that child will not carry that forward the next year, the next 3 years, or in their entire life. And so, very, very powerful model of Socratic dialogue and teaching.
And the thing is, the Socratic method is hard to use because not only is the teacher teaching, the teacher is learning. When you ask questions, you literally have to ask sincere questions. You know, most of us, when we're talking to somebody, we're just kind of waiting for them to shut up so we can tell them what they need to know. I mean, that's the standard method of dialogue is just, you finish what you're saying, and I'm going to tell you what you need to know. You can't do that with Socratic dialogue. You have to actually listen to what they're saying, and then you have to respond to what they're saying. So you have to think about what they're saying. That's how you create a true dialogue. That's, from experience, because I've been trying to do that, that's hard to do. It takes a lot of concentration, but it also helps you gain an affection and appreciation for the other person's argument. No matter how different the other person is, there usually is some minuscule point of agreement that you can start on to build a basis for dialogue. And that's what the Socratic method does, but the reason it's not universally adopted is because it's not easy. It's not just something that you plug in and say, do this and everything will be fine. It actually takes effort to do it. And that is effort. Effort is avoided by most of us at most times. Okay, where are we here? We are down to offering. If you have anything to contribute, please drop it in the plate. If you need something, let us know. here on the path of every day is our offering music. Our closing hymn is number 66, When Summer's Sun is Shining. When the summer clouds of thunder bring the long-awaited rain, not so much this summer, and the thirsty soil is moistened and the grass is green again, then I long for summer sunshine, but I know that clouds and tears are a part of life's refreshment, like the rainbow's hopes and fears. Extinguishing the chalice is our calling in the world. We have come to the end of our service, but not our calling in the world. We close our time together with a humble reminder that justice and equity are our spiritual practices to embrace each day, every day. We are blessed to be the embodiment of what is possible. When justice and equity ground us in all that we do, may we go forth with the light and warmth of our chalice in our hearts until we are together again. One of my favorite authors, Rebecca Savage. Postlude, Summer Place. was a movie, A Summer Place. I don't remember the movie, but I remember the music. It must have been a great movie because the music is almost indelible in your mind. Thank you for playing that. Okay, leave our one candle lit for those friends and colleagues who are not with us. Hopefully they are well. Would really be appreciated if they can keep us up to date on what's going on in their lives, even if they can't attend. And the fair is going on in Dark County. I'll be there from noon to 2 today at the Democratic Tent if anybody wants to drop by. Supposed to be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but I don't know. I've got other commitments in Preble County, and they've got me running to Trenton. They've got me running to Middletown, so I'm like all over the place. I put more miles on my dang truck in the last 2 months than I have the whole 5 years before this. So we'll see how that works out. Our horses. Teaching, you can teach anything. You can teach kids, you can teach adults, and you can teach horses. The Lippitz Honors, and I had some pictures. They were in Dayton, and we went down, and I couldn't find my pictures. We actually got to see them do some of these tricks. It's pretty incredible, and got to walk up. Tara got to walk up and actually pet one of them. They brought them over to the ring side where people could. Pretty amazing. The talent of the horses. And the talent of the people who teach them to do these amazing things. All right, that closes our service at New Madison. There are homemade pecan rolls Tara has made. She always makes too many, and they were in the freezer, so I said, what the heck, I don't have anything for today other than stale donuts, so you get pecan rolls, at least today.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day. Enjoy the fair if you're so inclined. I think you can still. I'm not sure what the parking is like out on the grass. It was pretty wet out there.
I went by. There's parking along ice and road.
Yep. So it's pretty tough. I've got a Subaru, so I parked in a spot where the water was standing, as I can get out of it. But it's pretty tough. So, all right. Have a good day. And anybody has any suggestions on what they want to hear, let me know. Since I'm involved in politics all the time, you're going to get more politics for the next couple of months. So, but I also think there is a reason that we're talking about politics. When I say our country is being dismantled in front of us, that's not hyperbole. That's really true. If you look at all the things, the functions. They even tried to eliminate FEMA. I think that's what I'll do next week is I'll bring out 2025 and we'll go through and see the things that the Heritage Foundation wanted to do. We'll see how much they've actually got accomplished.
Tim, I hope there's a part 2. I hope you get more into the comparisons of Socrates and Jesus Christ.
Oh, would you like to do that?
What I'm thinking is, Jesus' disciples, whatever the historical reality is and all that, knew about Socrates. How much of the Socrates story influenced the writings of the
they wrote in
disciples?
Greek? Yes.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes, we may follow that. The difference that I found in comparing the sayings of Christ will actually tell you, honor your father and mother. Christ will tell you, welcome the stranger. Socrates never told anybody to do anything. What he said, he asked you questions to bring you to that realization. But Christ also asked a lot of questions, and Christ also presented a person.
Parables.
Yeah, for parables, and he also presented a person of peace and quietness, and to do the right thing was important to Christ, and to do the right thing was important to Socrates, which I think is the reason both of them are still remembered after 2,000 years. All right. And anybody else who wants to make a presentation, feel free.
I would like to.